This episode contains spoilers for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the movie, not the video game. Yeah, Sonic 2 is here! Alright, fellas, welcome back to another episode of the Cinephile Gamers Podcast. I am your host, Bo Smith, and obviously, if you can't tell what this episode's about, it's Sonic the Hedgehog 2, baby! Yeah! This is one I've been looking forward to for a couple of years now, obviously, since the first one had come out back in 2020. Of course, with the whole, we won't get into the backstory of everything, but the redesign of Sonic, and then going actually into the movie, thinking it was going to be a dumpster fire, and then Oh my goodness, this is actually a very pleasant movie. It's a really good video game movie. How does that happen? And good news, we've got another good video game movie. I just got back from watching it with my boy Tanner. So excited, and we're going to definitely get into this now. Alright, so let's get into the basics of it first. So, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is directed by Jeff Fowler, who was the original director for the first movie, and then it stars Ben Schwartz as the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog again, and then he is joined by Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who reprises her role as Tails from the video game series. Idris Elba is Knuckles in this movie, Jim Carrey is Dr. Robotnik again, and then you have just a list of other people. Yeah, James Marden's back in this movie along with Tika Sumpter and names that I can't remember from other people or their characters' names for that matter. But let's go ahead and just jump into this movie. So, it follows up from the last adventure of Sonic the Hedgehog. You see that a little bit of time has passed. I want to say close to a year, I think is what Dr. Robotnik had logged it in. He's still trapped on this mushroom world, but he builds this device that sends out this message with Sonic's quill that he still has, and so he eventually gets in contact with Knuckles, who finds him on this planet, and he's like, "Where did you get that quill from?" And Dr. Robotnik's like, "If you get me out of here, I'll show you." So they team up, and as Sonic, you go back to Earth, it shows Sonic with his family, James Marsden, Tika Sumpter, like I said, can't remember their names. That just kind of shows you how little you care about these characters, at least for the human characters. But anyways, it shows that they are going off to Hawaii while Sonic stays home and gets to just be by himself. But that's when he gets ambushed by Dr. Robotnik and Knuckles. But then he gets saved by Tails, who comes in and says, "Hey, you are the one who is going to be finding this Master Emerald that Longclaw sent." He was like, "Longclaw? How do you know her?" And so then they go off on this grand adventure trying to find the Master Emerald before Knuckles and Eggman do. And if you have played the games, this is pretty similar to what happens in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is oddly enough that you get Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the movie, that includes Tails, who made his first introduction in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the video game, but then you have Knuckles, who comes from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, making his debut in Sonic the Movie 2, and don't want to get you confused at all, but a lot of this takes beats from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. It also takes beats from a lot of different other Sonic games as well, but we'll get into this. So let me start off by saying this. I'm going to get into elements that happen later on that are not shown in trailers, so I want to go ahead, and I know it's pretty early on in this podcast episode, but I want to go ahead and put out a spoiler warning ahead. So if this is a movie that you have been looking forward to like I have, and you might not have caught it opening weekend, spoilers ahead. If you want to wait and watch, go ahead and watch the movie, come back and listen to this episode because I got a lot of things to say on it. So let's start off with the good things about this movie. Just like the first movie, I feel like this does not take itself seriously at all, which works into the movie's favor. I mean, it is definitely going to be one of those out there things, especially since Sonic is from another planet originally, comes here, and like I said, fish out of water story. And this movie takes itself not seriously at all. In fact, it pokes a lot of fun about pop reference cultures that are definitely way outdated. There is a Limp Bizkit joke in here that Jim Carrey makes, which is very weird, but at the same time, you get a good laugh out of it. So don't take this movie seriously at all. And it works for the better of this movie, especially whenever it adds more elements, but it's like, hey, this is, a video game. Have fun with it. Ben Schwartz does another excellent job as Sonic the Hedgehog. He has solidified himself as one of the voices that everyone's going to remember for Sonic. Initially, from the first movie, I was like, okay, he's pretty good. Not the Sonic that I always picture in my mind, but now that I am going back and playing these different Sonic games, these are the voices I'm going to remember. Sorry, I thought my phone was on silent, y'all. So yeah, the work that he does in this movie is excellent, and I am definitely going to remember anytime I see Sonic, I'm going to probably picture his voice from now on, unless it's just one of those nostalgia things like Sonic Adventure 2, where I picture that voice actor instead. As I had mentioned before, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who voices Tails in the video games, is making her debut on the big screen. I guess making a debut. I don't know. Need to fact check that specifically. Anyways, she's reprising her role as Tails, but she is jumping into this movie, and she's pretty much like Tails from the video game, I would say. Of course, not meaning the same voice, but captures that character perfectly and how they would act specifically as far as Tails goes, and puts a lot of emotion into it like she would any other video game part that she voices from Sonic. I really enjoy a lot of the things that Tails does in this movie. I think he is a extremely fun character that is very faithful to the video game counterparts. Has a few different cheesy dialogue moments. Like, the reason he knows about Sonic is because, and they pull from the first movie about when Sonic creates the power outage, it apparently goes across the entire universe and Tails catches it on a computer, so he just follows Sonic's adventure the entire time. So, in a weird way, stalks Sonic and just knows like all these deeply personal things about him or that what he does while he's on Earth. But it's still kind of fun because it pokes fun of that a little bit too. And it just shows that Tails will become Sonic's best friend, and as the movie goes on, it definitely proves that point, that they developed this really cool friendship bond. But it also captures like some of the early days of Tails that were written like in the instruction manuals or that you see from the original Sonic Adventure game, that Tails is a little bit shy. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He's not as brave as Sonic, but Sonic brings out those best qualities in Tails. And so the way they were able to translate that to the film, I thought was great. Idris Elba as Knuckles. Man, what a fun performance that was. Originally, whenever it was announced that he was going to be Knuckles, I thought, this is a weird voice acting choice. I don't know about that. And then the trailer dropped showing Knuckles saying, "Do I look like I need your power?" And I was like, "Ooh, okay, I can get behind this voice. Yeah, let's go." And Idris Elba does a really good job as Knuckles. Catches some of the quirks of Knuckles. Knuckles has some funny lines in this movie, and it gets to show how powerful he is compared to what he's like in the video games as well. The one thing I do have a criticism, and this is not necessarily on Idris Elba's part, but it's on the writer's side of this, is that for the first half of the movie, I really enjoy Knuckles' character, but in the third act of the movie, they kind of make him like the big, muscly guy that has no brain power at all. Not to say that they made him look dumb, but think of Drax from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. That is a fair comparison, I think, to make. That he takes things too literal. Of course, he doesn't understand Earth or the customs of this world, so he's learning things along the way, and of course, when teaming up with Dr. Robotnik, gets mistold about certain things and how things work there. But some of the writing, it comes across as like, yes, I am taking this joke literally, kind of like Drax did in that first movie. And I don't really like that representation of Knuckles. Knuckles is not that way. He is a pretty smart guy. He is a little bit gullible sometimes, but it's never really portrayed that way in the video games, except for the most recent like Sonic Boom series, which I don't care for that iteration of Knuckles either. But Knuckles knows what he's doing. He's a pretty capable person, or echidna, I should say. But other than that, I really enjoy the performance as a whole. I think he has a lot of great moments to shine as well, and Idris does good with the material that he's given too. Ace Ventura, I mean The Grinch, I mean The Mask, I mean Dr. Robotnik, Jim Carrey. Once again, show stealer in this movie. I mean, he does a absolutely fantastic job, and you can kind of tell just from the first scenes alone when it opens up to him on this mushroom planet that he's been on there for like over 200 days, how crazy he's gotten. And if you saw the ending scenes from the last movie, you saw where he shaved his head, the mustache goes a little bit crazy. So I was like, okay, we're going to get a more, not faithful adaptation, but a more, this is going to be how the character looks, just like his video game counterpart. Only really thing that Jim Carrey is missing is a fat suit for Dr. Robotnik. Other than that, I mean, he does a fantastic job of doing an impersonation, does his own little spin on that character, kind of that crazy tech geek in a way. He is absolutely just hysterical. There's a few weird moments in there. They once again throw in like another floss dance, which I don't know why they do, but anytime Jim Carrey speaks, it's golden, and he has some great lines in this movie. I don't want to necessarily give those things away, but he does another great job in this movie. I hope he does return for this upcoming third potential movie. I don't know. We'll venture into that a little bit later whenever we get into the later half of the movie. Now, as for the rest of the cast, which is mostly the human characters, you have Dr. Robotnik's assistant, Dr. Stone, or Agent Stone, I guess, and he makes a return in this movie. That's about the only one that I didn't mind of the human characters outside of Dr. Robotnik that I enjoyed in this movie. He has some really good moments, and you have a good few belly laughs from it. But for the most part, I don't really care about James Marsden's characters or Tika Sumpter or any of the rest of them. They go to Hawaii for Tika Sumpter's sister's wedding, and that is the part of the movie that really takes the biggest nosedive. There's funny moments in it, but it feels like they cut, copy, and pasted a different movie into this movie, and then they just added Sonic in a couple different parts, and that's how it's all connected. But it adds nothing to this movie. It really slows the pacing down of it overall, and it definitely could have been written out. I mean, you don't need these characters at all. I feel like they take away from the movie. There's nothing really that they add to it other than maybe the initial scenes with James Marsden, just talking about, how Sonic is family, and he's going to have this moment where he becomes the hero, but he needs to figure that out and know when the time is right, that sort of thing. Those kind of themes of the movie. Now, in the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I feel like there were a couple of nods towards the video game, but they weren't really heavy-handed with it. This movie has a lot of fan service for people who enjoy the video games. And I mean, it's not even the fan service that is necessarily like overt and it draws attention to itself. It is, in fact, this is what I really appreciate about the movie. You don't have to be a huge fan of the video game series to see these references and understand them, because the movie doesn't really necessarily interact with the plot at all, I guess is what I'm trying to say. These are little hints, nods, Easter eggs that if you're a Sonic fan, you're going to see it and you're going to be like, hey, that's from that game and that's from that game. Oh, I can't believe they included that. Wow. And I mean, that is everything from like certain levels of the game to design choices. It's really cool. In fact, some of the biggest things that I noticed from is that, of course, the Mushroom Planet, which Dr. Robotnik ended up on from the first movie, starts out on this movie. It's directly from Mushroom Hill Zone from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. You also have Labyrinth Zone, which is later on in the movie when they find the Master Emerald. And at first I was like, why does this look familiar? Then I realized it's the crystals, like the bright, different lit crystals, plus the underwater part. I'm like, this is straight from Sonic 1. That's amazing. And then, of course, you have the mountain that Sonic sleds down or snowboards down, and that is definitely a nod from Sonic Adventure 1 whenever he outruns the avalanche. That is just a fun moment, and it's in that moment that I'm like, maybe they'll play like a little bit of the song from that level where it goes down, and they don't do it, unfortunately. I would have loved like just a small few notes from that and then be like, okay, I got it. But you also have a few other references. They only throw in one Sonic song, and it's James Marsden's ringtone whenever Sonic calls him, and it's just the Green Hill Zone from the original Sonic game. You also have Dr. Robotnik, who has an outfit that is pretty similar to what looks like his suit from the modern games, minus the large belly part. You also have Badniks in this game, like from the original games. Granted, they're red and white and black, and they don't look like the cartoony counterparts, but some of the designs are just like, yeah, I recognize that as an enemy from the original game. And then finally, you have the really good nods as well, like the final fight between the heroes versus Eggman, and it's the Death Egg robot. It's this giant robot that's the final boss in a couple of the games, and you're like, I can't believe they're putting this in there. It's such a cool moment. You also have the coffee shop where Dr. or Agent Stone, whatever his name is, works at, and it's called the Mean Bean Coffee Company, which is a great reference to one of the Genesis games, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, that very few people are going to get, but as soon as I saw it, I leaned over to him like, it's Dr. Eggman's Mean Bean Machine. And then we just both start snickering in this theater full of adults and kids that I don't know how many of them are picking up on these references, but we had a blast. I mean, there's great moments too that if you're with a Sonic fan or someone who grew up playing these games that you're going to have and you're just going to kind of riff on. Like, this is the perfect like watch at home movie and just have a fun time making jokes and making references to other things. Like, there's at one point that Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are all fighting Dr. Robotnik. And spoilers, like I said, well, you got your spoiler warning. I'm not going to give any more. Anyways, Dr. Robotnik is fighting the three heroes, and then as they're fighting the machines, all I could think of in fact, Tanner leaned over to me first, and he said, Sonic Heroes? And I'm like, oh yeah, Sonic Heroes vibes, definitely. You've also got a few other references that you're really going to enjoy, like Sonic's love for chili dogs is mentioned a couple times and is brought up as a joke. Whenever Dr. Robotnik tells Agent Stone about the manual for operating the robot, literally one gets pulled out and it's an instruction manual booklet. It looks like one of the Sega Genesis manuals, and that is such a deep cut. Love it! And as you saw from the trailers of the movie, if you did see those, you also have references to the Tornado, which is a plane that Tails flies in different parts of games that he and Sonic travel on if they're going after like a flying ship or anything like that. So that's a fun one right there. You also have what I thought was the most clever one, and that's when Sonic is trying to rescue Knuckles from the Labyrinth Zone area. It starts flooding up and Knuckles is trapped under this pillar, and Sonic's like, I can't swim! And so he jumps down there, he's trying to move this pillar, and he starts running out of air. He sees a bubble and just slurps it up, and you're just like, what a great nod. And that's another thing is you start to see him like fade out because he's running out of oxygen. And I was really hoping it would play like the motif from that thing. It never does. I think I imagined it in my mind that I was like, please play this, please play this. And I thought I heard a couple notes, but from what I was told, that didn't happen. So I'm going to take the L on that one. This movie, while I do enjoy it a lot, it does go 20 minutes too long, and I've heard a lot of reviewers say that about this movie. I'm going to be one of those people that echo it. It's 20 minutes too long. It clocks in at roughly about 2 hours, and it could be maybe an hour and a half to an hour 40-minute movie, and it would be perfectly fine. And obviously that comes from whenever they land back on Hawaii after coming from the snow chase thing, and it focuses on the human characters, which, while a funny part like I had mentioned earlier, it really just kind of takes you out of the action. It slows down. There's also a couple scenes here and there that maybe parts of it could have been trimmed to make it a little bit faster, not focusing on certain things. But overall, I wasn't too terrible about the runtime like I am with other movies that I feel like, please get the clock rolling. But like I said, probably could have been a little bit more enjoyable if it was a little bit shorter. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the second half of the movie. Like I had mentioned, they are looking for the Master Emerald, which gives a really neat backstory that's not wholly original. They talk about the Echidna tribe warring and using the emeralds to take over other tribes, and that's why the owls and the echidnas fought. That's the part that's original. But anyways, they sealed the Chaos Emeralds into the Master Emerald, and that's why it has so much power. And so as they get to the Labyrinth Zone, Eggman betrays Knuckles, who then joins Sonic on this adventure, and Eggman absorbs the Master Emerald into him. And this is what I thought was neat. That's something I've never seen done in Sonic games previously. Eggman has used the Chaos Emeralds or the Master Emerald before to where he powers up a machine, but never actually like powers up himself in fact. It gives him this really weird synthesized voice, and it kind of makes him even crazier with power than usual. And I thought was neat. I'd like to see that adapted into maybe a future Sonic game. I think that has some potential right there. But they all end up back at Green Hills, Montana, and he forms the Death Egg robot. And so they formulate a plan to try to get the emerald back from Dr. Robotnik. The distraction plan does work, but Sonic goes down into this little river area where he sees that Knuckles has knocked the Master Emerald out of Dr. Robotnik. But Dr. Robotnik does have a backup plan for the giant robot machine, so he's still able to control it. It's at this point James Marsden, Tika Sumpter drive in, rescue Sonic as they grab the Master Emerald, but they get trapped by the robot. And so they're like, you know what? We're a family. We're going to be together through this, through the end. And you see that the emerald shatters, and it's got 7 tiny Chaos Emeralds. Really tiny Chaos Emeralds. They're normally bigger, but whatever. That's just a weird design choice. I'm not going to reflect heavily on it like I am right now. Anyways, as the foot is coming down on top of them, you see the 7 emeralds spin and get absorbed into Sonic, and then the foot crushes. And of course, Tails and Knuckles are like, no! But then the robot moves and Dr. Robotnik's like, what is going on? And then you see Sonic turn into Super Sonic, baby! Yeah! I mean, this is the moment that I was like, man, I hope this happens in the second movie. And it did, and I was super happy about it. Perfect design. It looks just like him. Has the red eyes, gold fur, everything. Looks super cool and doesn't crack jokes either while in supersonic form too. And I was like, I hope it's not going to be that Ben Schwartz moment where everything needs to be a joke. He was actually serious like he typically is in that supersonic form. And so he takes off the robot's head, and as Dr. Robotnik is trying to plead, he tries to sucker punch him with the giant robot fist, stops it, destroys it, and then just kicks the robot over with his foot. And then you see the machine and Dr. Robotnik collapse with it. And then as Sonic returns to the ground, there's a really funny joke that I'm not going to spoil because you should watch it. It took me by surprise. And then Sonic gives up the Master Emerald, or he gives up the Chaos Emerald's power, and then Knuckles is able to form the Master Emerald back together using the Chaos Emeralds. And so they decide to make a pact that this power does not belong to anyone and they should be the guardians of it. And so the 3 stay on Earth together, which I guess Knuckles is now no longer by himself. He's going to live on Earth as well, including Tails, because he wants to pal around with Sonic. But the 3 end up staying together with James Marsden, Tika Sumpter at, I guess, their house. And they end the movie with them playing a baseball game, going to get ice cream. And then they leave the Master Emerald behind. Sonic's like, I don't want to lose this. The credits, once again, really cool. Like, really good attention to detail because it shows, like the first movie did, shows what happens throughout the movie, but in that 16-bit sprite format, like from the original game. And it even has good references, like pulling straight from the level design of like Mushroom Hill, Labyrinth Zone, and putting it on the screen. I thought it was so cool. Really did a good job. Took mannerisms from those video game characters as well in there. And then there's a post-credits scene. The last one ended with a post-credits scene because we knew we were going to get Tails, obviously. This one, it shows the gun unit, which another reference to a Sonic game, but it's a special task force unit that formed after the initial movie. It shows them looking around the wreckage for Dr. Robotnik, and they're like, there's no way he could survive that fall. And they said, well, we found something else while digging through his files. And there was a project that he had been working on in secret that's frozen. It cuts to this frozen wasteland, and they said, Project Shadow. And you see the black and red quill spore going out from this tube, and his eyes open, and the movie cuts off. The reaction from the theater, I was dying laughing. Tanner was screaming no. And it was like that throughout the entire theater. And that's when we all collectively as the theater went, no! I can't believe it. This is being included in here. Tanner had said, they're jumping the shark on this one. I have to agree. Shadow the Hedgehog, for those who have not played the game, it's kind of like an anti-Sonic. He's initially a villain, kind of an anti-hero later on, but I don't know. That's when Sonic gets really weird with its storytelling. It's gonna be one of those things that if another movie does happen, then it's gonna be a little strange to try to play around with that character and make a wide audience appeal for it too. I don't know how they're gonna do that. Also, don't know who they're gonna voice to do that. The nostalgia in me doesn't want anything changed from Sonic Adventure 2. They need to find that voice actor again, bring him back for that role, because that's the only voice I can picture from that. But God help us if they choose like some British voice actor person, like a Benedict Cumberbatch, I don't know, that takes on that role. Because I don't want to hear that. I want to hear something from the video game. I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's crazy to think that this is happening. We've had two good video game movies from Sonic. The least likely video game that I thought would be adapted well. And here we are talking about this in 2022. There was also talks from Jim Carrey while he's doing press tours of this movie that he's going to be retiring from acting unless there's a script that compels him to go into do another movie. I don't know. Which is sad to hear because Jim Carrey is the reason I love movies. I grew up watching The Mask, Ace Ventura movies, Dumb and Dumber. So I'm going to be sad if he really is serious about that. And I guess that's why they had left the ending of the movie open, saying, like, there's no way he could survive this crash. But you know the rule, if a character doesn't die on screen, then it doesn't really happen. So the floor is open for him to return as Dr. Robotnik in the next movie. Who knows if it will happen? I guess Shadow's going to be one of the villains in the next movie, and I guess they are going to have to adapt the story of Sonic Adventure 2 for the next movie. So that'll be a weird one to see, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there in 2 to 3 years. I don't know. If it ended now, I would actually be happy with these two Sonic movies. We'll do a review eventually on the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie because it's one of those that, like I said, we went in watching that movie not really thinking it was going to be great. Turned out to have a really fun time with it. Writing is not always good. I mean, there are moments in this movie too where writing was really weird. Oh man, especially with like the gun unit characters through in the Hawaii scenes. And it's that dude that did the Olive Garden promotion at the end of the first movie. He's back in this as like the head of this army unit, and he doesn't do a good job. Neither is the lady who talks to him in that post-credit scene. It's just so stoic wooden acting like, what do you mean, hidden project? I mean, there was this secret project he was working on. That overacting that is so horrible that should be on par with a video game movie. Anyways, yeah. So the acting from some of those human characters, which Tanner had also... Tanner, if you're listening, I'm going to use a lot of points we talked about in the car ride home, and I appreciate you, and you can't charge me for what I'm about to say or any of the review things that you had mentioned before to me. But what he had made a good point of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, those are really the only three characters that you need in order to make a Sonic movie without it getting too much in the way of Uncanny Valley, because you're interacting with a lot of humans, and like I had mentioned before, the humans do not contribute to anything in this movie like they did in the last movie, since it was just Sonic by himself. So if you introduce more animated characters, it's just going to get into a huge mess. So you really need to find a way to get off Earth, go to an original world, I guess. And I know that some of the Sonic games, they interact in a world much like our own, which is fine, but those are animated games. And there's like an already established world there that you don't really need to invest in, and you don't follow human characters in that game. It's all about the animals. Really, what I would say is if you have to include human characters in this next movie, only include James Marsden and Tika Sumpter because they're Sonic's adopted parents, and that's it. I don't want to see Officer Doofus in the movie, whatever his name is. I don't want to see the wife's sister whose wedding we were at in the movie. I don't want to see any of them. They take away from the movie. They don't do anything. They don't contribute in any way. You really need an original world of your own that you can put all these characters in. So if you want to introduce Shadow the Hedgehog or Amy Rose or I don't know who else, it really doesn't need to get into that. Then it's just creating movies for Sonic fans only, and that's going to be just the 20 people. The 20 people in the theater that are going to watch that. So yeah, if you haven't been able to tell from my fanboying this entire episode, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's great for a casual going audience. I think it is a good sequel. It's definitely on par with the first movie. I'm not sure if it is better quality-wise, especially for that casual viewing audience. For the Sonic fans, though, I think they will really enjoy this movie with all the references. And in fact, I'm sure there's several references that I did not pick up initially watching it, so I'm excited to watch it again to see what other types of Sonic lore that I might have missed out on upon initial viewing. That being said, it does fall into some of the dumb tropes that fall into a video game movie. It's hard to adapt something like this, especially something as wild as Sonic the Hedgehog. So let's see what Mario does here in December with their movie. But it is a fun movie overall. I think it holds well to the first movie. I think it adds a little bit more, has more fun with it as well. You have some great moments from all the main cast of the movie as well that play off each other. And overall, thought it was a good time. It's definitely one I'm going to be buying on DVD whenever it comes out eventually. So I am going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Personally, I thought it was great. It stands up on that very small pedestal of good video game movies, up there with the first movie, with two of the Mortal Kombat movies, and other video game movies. Wow, I'm drawing a blank. That just shows you how very little there are and how low of a bar it is to be a good video game adapted movie. Anyways, have you seen Sonic the Hedgehog 2? And I mean the movie, not the video game. If you have, tell me what you thought of it. I'd love to hear your comments. You can follow me on Facebook at the Cinephile Gamers Podcast, or you can tweet at me at Cinephile Gamers. You can follow both ways. I post content on there. Or if you want exclusive content and also want to donate to the show, you can go to patreon.com at the Cinephile Gamers Podcast, and you can donate to the show, and I would greatly appreciate that. You don't have to. I'm still going to put out these episodes for you. As always, guys, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the movie too. I think it's a really good one. And as always, I will see you in the next podcast episode.